There are exactly 3 phone calls that could put as much as $300, or in some cases significantly more, back into your Social Security check every single month. 3 calls. Most take less than 15 minutes each. Almost nobody over 65 ever makes them. Not because they're complicated, simply because no one at the Social Security Administration has any job description that says, call this person and tell them what they're owed. That money just sits there, unclaimed, month after month after month, because the whole system runs on one quiet assumption that you'll never know enough to ask. And here's the part that should bother you. The information isn't hidden. The rules are public. The forms are free. The phone number is right on the SSA website. But here's what actually happens. When you call the SSA about a routine question, a payment date, an address change, nobody on the other end says, oh, and by the way, here are 3 things we owe you that you haven't claimed yet. That conversation doesn't happen unless you start it. The people who get every dollar they've earned are usually the people who simply ask. 1 phone call. Let me put a number to this. The average gap for someone whose earnings record has an uncorrected error is roughly $90 to $120 a month in lost benefits. That's over $1,000 a year. Over a 20-year retirement, more than $24,000 already earned, already owed, just never collected. And that's 1 call. We're covering 3 today. In this video, I'll walk you through all 3 calls, the exact phone number, the exact form where there is one, and the exact words to say when someone picks up. I'll also tell you which call is most likely to apply to your specific situation. And I'll introduce you to Dorothy, 71, who made just 1 of these calls and added $218 to her monthly check permanently. Stick around to the end. The 3rd call is the one the SSA has the least incentive to ever mention to you. I created Senior Money News to do one thing: take the government rules that affect your retirement and translate them into plain English. No products, nothing to sell, just publicly available information you have a legal right to access, completely free. Let's get into it. Call number 1. So what does this first call actually do? It isn't asking for more money. It's checking whether the government calculated your money correctly in the first place. Most people assume their Social Security benefit is accurate. They assume the number they receive every month is the right number, but it might not be. Your benefit is calculated using your lifetime earnings record, specifically your 35 highest earning years. The SSA tracks this. They have a number on file for every single year you've worked, but that record isn't always accurate. A year of wages accidentally reported to the wrong Social Security number. Self-employment income that didn't get credited correctly. An employer who filed your W-2 under a name that didn't match exactly. Each one of those errors quietly lowers your monthly check. A small mistake from decades ago, silently reducing your income ever since. So what happens if you find a mistake? You request your Social Security statement. It shows every single year of reported income going back to your very first job. You review it line by line. If something looks wrong, a year that's missing, or a year that looks lower than you remember, you file a form called the SSA 7008. That's SSA-7008. It's called the Request for Correction of Earnings Record. Now here's the part most people don't expect. It's free. You attach old tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, whatever you have from that year, and the SSA reviews it. When they confirm the error, your benefit gets recalculated using the higher number, and you start receiving that larger amount going forward. Imagine working 30 years and discovering that one missing record has quietly reduced every check you've received. That's not a rare situation. That's something I come across regularly covering this space. Now, the call, 1-800-772-1213. That's the official SSA helpline, Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to 7 in the evening. When someone picks up, say this word for word: I'd like to request a copy of my Social Security statement and review my lifetime earnings record for any discrepancies. Can you help me with that or direct me to the right department? 15 minutes. Routine request. They will help you. Before you decide this doesn't apply to you, have you ever changed jobs, worked for yourself, had any gap in employment? If the answer is yes to any of those, there's a real chance something is off. The only way to know is to look. Call number 2. This one starts with a question most people never think to ask. What if I kept working after I started collecting? Most people assume the SSA automatically updates their benefit when that happens. Usually they do, but there's one problem, not always. And that not always is exactly why this second call exists. Here's how this works. When the SSA calculates your benefit, they use your 35 highest earning years. That calculation happens at one specific moment, when you first claim. But if you went on to earn additional income after claiming, those newer earnings might be higher than some of the years currently in your top 35. If they are, the SSA is supposed to adjust your benefit automatically. This is called a recomputation. In most cases, it happens every October. Now here's the catch. Most people assume most cases means their case. It doesn't always. There are delays, there are processing backlogs, and when yours gets missed, the SSA is not going to call you. They'll keep paying you the lower amount indefinitely until you ask. That's what separates guessing your benefit is right from actually knowing it is. Same number, 1-800-772-1213. When someone picks up, say, I continued working after I began receiving retirement benefits. I'd like to find out whether a recomputation has been applied to my benefit amount and whether my post-retirement earnings have been credited to my record. They look it up right then. If a recomputation was missed, they process it. The increase goes on to your monthly check going forward. Most of the time, here's what happens. People call, they confirm everything was updated correctly, and that's genuinely good news. But every so often someone finds $20, $50, even $100 a month sitting there uncredited. You won't know until you ask, and the call costs you nothing. Call number 3. This is the one I want you to pay the most attention to, and it's the one the SSA has the least reason to ever bring up on their own. Most people know they receive Social Security based on their own earnings record. What most people don't realize is that they might be eligible for a completely different, higher amount based on someone else's record, specifically a spouse, a late spouse, or in some cases, a former spouse. Let me make that concrete. Say you're currently receiving $980 a month based on your own record. Your late husband or your late wife had a benefit of $1,640 a month at the time of their death. You are eligible to claim the higher amount. The difference? $660 a month, $7,920 a year. But here's the part that matters. The SSA will keep paying you the lower amount, month after month, indefinitely, unless you ask. That's not an oversight. That's just how the system works. It responds. It does not initiate. Sometimes the only difference is one simple question. I've covered Social Security rules for a long time. The most consistent thing I run across is widows and widowers sitting on a lower benefit they don't have to be on. Some of them have been there for years. Same number, 1-800-772-1213. Say this, I'm a widow. I've been receiving retirement benefits on my own record. I'd like to find out whether I'm eligible for a higher survivor benefit based on my late spouse's earnings record and what that amount would be. If you're a divorced surviving spouse, say, I was married for more than 10 years. My former spouse has passed away. I'd like to find out whether I'm eligible for survivor benefits on their earnings record. They will look it up. If you qualify for a higher amount, they'll tell you the exact number and walk you through the switch. Here's something almost nobody realizes. Claiming a survivor benefit doesn't reduce what anyone else receives. It doesn't take from the system. This is money already set aside because of your family's combined earnings history. It just requires one conversation to unlock. For widows and widowers, you generally need to be at least 60 years old, or 50 if you're disabled. For divorced spousal benefits, the marriage must have lasted at least 10 years, and you must currently be unmarried or have remarried after age 60. Not sure if you qualify? Make the call anyway. Let them run the numbers. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She's 71. She lives in Ohio. She spent most of her working life in part-time jobs while raising 3 kids. When she claimed at 62, her benefit was $891 a month. She figured that was just what it was. Her husband Robert passed away when Dorothy was 68. She called the SSA at the time. The representative noted she was already receiving her benefit, and the conversation ended there. That's where most people stop. 3 years later, Dorothy's daughter watched a video like this one. She told her mom to call back, to ask specifically, to use the exact words. Dorothy called. She asked whether she was eligible for a higher amount on Robert's record. Robert's benefit at the time of his death had been $1,109 a month. Dorothy's check went from $891 to $1,109, a difference of $218 a month, $2,616 a year. And because she had been eligible for 3 years without knowing, the SSA issued back pay for every month she'd missed. One phone call, 15 minutes. Dorothy said it was one of the most important calls she'd ever made. One serious warning before we close. Wherever there is money owed to seniors, someone shows up wanting a cut. You may come across websites or companies offering to help you claim unclaimed Social Security benefits for a fee. Some look official. Do not pay anyone for what we covered today. Everything in this video is free. The phone number is free. Filing the SSA 7008 is free. Asking about survivor benefits is free. The only number you need is 1-800-772-1213. Anyone asking you to pay for these services is taking advantage of you. This week's action list. Call the SSA and request your Social Security statement. Review every year for errors or missing income. If anything looks off, ask about filing Form SSA 7008. If you worked after you started collecting benefits, ask whether a recomputation has been applied. If you're widowed or a divorced surviving spouse, ask them to compare your current benefit with your survivor benefit. Write down the date, the time, and the name of every representative you speak with. Keep a paper record. It matters. If this video opened your eyes today, do one thing for me. Share it with someone you love who's over 65, especially if they're widowed, especially if they've been on the same Social Security amount for years without ever reviewing their record. The SSA is not going to call them. The government is not going to send a letter, but you might be the one who does. That's the whole reason this channel exists, to turn confusing government rules into one clear conversation that actually help. I'll see you in the next